All right, so today I wanted to start by talking about this clip that I seen from the Post Millennial. Now it went really viral. There was tens of thousands of retweets on the original post, but I seen it out of the Post Millennial. And anyway, it's of this lady. The Post Millennial says maskless shopper in Los Angeles unloads on scolding CVS employee. Now, I think she was still relatively respectful. They make it seem like she was like the worst in the world, but given the circumstances, I think she handled it relatively well. But the main point I wanted to bring up here is that this is what we need to see more of. Like this is what we need to see more of, and this is the thing that for the small percentage of people that do this kind of stuff, like awesome, like good on you. For the people that don't, the point that I've been bringing up for a while now, and it's only become more and more relevant over time, is that as far as the government's concerned, as far as the medical quote unquote professionals are concerned, we're never going to go back to normal until the people demand it. They've been fairly clear about this kind of stuff. Normalcy won't return until enough people stand up and say enough's enough. This is the biggest thing that the average person gets wrong when it comes to the whole virus situation, is that the average person still seems to think, I think that the numbers are getting smaller, but they still seem to think that, oh, it's still just temporary, right? It's just temporary. We're we're almost a year into this whole situation, and yet you still think that it's just temporary. Like seriously, like what more do you what do you think could possibly change? Like this is just how ignorant and dumbed down the average person is. Now, to be fair, the people watching this probably are not of that ilk, but as far as the average person is concerned, like this is just basic like common sense. Like the best prediction of the future, or the best way to predict the future, is recent relative things that have went on, right? The best predictor of the past is relevant recent events. What has all the recent relevant events been? Has it ever been, show me one time, there maybe is some, but show me a clear correlation between the government imposing these restrictions, them not doing anything, and the government saying, hey, we tried the restrictions, they didn't work, we're going to go back to normal. I can't think of literally any cases of that happening. The places that have been laissez-faire when it comes to this whole stuff, they've been laissez-faire for pretty much the whole time, if not the whole time. The places that haven't, which is the vast majority of places, have been doing that the whole time. So again, like if they've been doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, what do you expect? Like this is like it is literally doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. This is the average person's mentality on this. We've been told numerous times, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It was, oh, we just gotta lock down a little more to flatten the curve, right? And it was, oh, once we get a vaccine, we'll be good to go. And then now we have a vaccine, but we still have to lock down. Oh, it's 28 days in Alberta now, and in Ontario they're having a third lockdown because the last one didn't work, the original one didn't work. The mask mandates get extended for over a year. Like again, every single new piece of thing, of information, at least from the government, that has came out has always been, we didn't do it enough. It has always been, we didn't do it enough. So the point I'm trying to get across here, I think it's very obvious, but the government solution is always going to be more lockdowns, more mask mandates, more um, communism and authoritarianism, basically. That's what their solution is always going to be until enough people say enough's enough. That is what their solution is always going to be. And this is the point I'm trying to get across here, is that the other point I'm trying to get across is this is what's really going to change people's mind, because there's different ways of going about this. There's the protesting, and then there's stuff like this. I'm not a huge fan of the protesting. I still think we should be doing it because it's a good thing. But the problem with the protesting is, what happens with the protesting? Well, what happens with the protesting is you can have 1,000 people show up to a protest, and if 1% of them or 0.1% of them are people that say something crazy, like you have the guy in Saskatoon, you have the odd guy who says the virus doesn't exist, all this kind of stuff. The mainstream media will paint them will paint the entire movement with that brush, right? If they can find one guy that's a lockdown skeptic that says something crazy, they'll make it seem like literally everyone who's skeptical of the lockdown believes in that idea. And that is the problem with the protests, right? That is the problem with the protests, is that the mainstream media they'll take something entirely out of context, or they'll find the one crazy guy out of 1,000 and they'll make it seem like everybody believes that. So that's the problem with the protesting, right? The problem with the protesting I guess I'm trying to point out is that I don't think it's going to change people's minds. I don't think it's going to change people's minds. At least it may have a little bit of a positive impact, but not as much as what a lot of people would think. I think the better way of going about things is by doing stuff like this, because when the average person's coming up with their worldview on this, if everybody they know doesn't support the lockdowns, it's pretty hard for them to look themselves in the mirror and be like, yeah, I support the lockdowns. So that, again, the whole point I'm trying to get across here is that if you want to change people's minds, you simply have to expose them to views that differ from their own and do it a lot. Because again, like I say, if everybody they know doesn't support the lockdowns, if everybody they know doesn't support this garbage, then eventually they're going to have to be forced to be like, hey, why am I the only one that believes this? Like, a lot of these people are going to be forced to do that. So again, if you want to change people's minds, I believe the better way of doing it, not that, like I say, not protesting is still a good thing, I think, but I don't think it's doing nearly as much good as what we would like to think. I think the far better way of doing things is to make your voice heard. To make your voice heard, because when people are trying to make up their worldview on stuff they're unsure about, usually how they do it is they simply just side with the majority of people, right? That's why terrible things go on in society, because if the majority of people support something, anybody who's unsure about whatever it is we're talking about will usually just default to whatever that is. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out here. The next thing is from Global News here, and they have a title, MPP Randy Hillier posts a photo of 15 people in one room celebrating Christmas, and ooh, it's the worst thing ever. And again, it's just stupid. It's so stupid because, number one, do you honestly think that Randy Hillier was the only politician who celebrated Christmas with his family? Like, you have to be so stupid. I don't even have words for you if you're that dumb. Um, I mean, how many examples? I mean, I'm going to point out another example, but how many examples of politicians and these doctors do we have that don't follow their own rules? I must have been over well into the double digits at this point. I got another one to talk about, but well into the double digits. Recently you had Dr. Birx, who was like the second top doctor in the States after Fauci, who visited her family over I think it was Thanksgiving, U.S. Thanksgiving. So again, if these quote unquote experts don't even believe in their own rules and the politicians don't believe in it, why would you? Like, this is one of the oddest psychological concepts amongst humans, I believe, is that you have this large group of people that just love being treated like a peasant, love being treated like a second class citizen. Like, if you read the comments of the tweet when they posted this out, like, it was roughly spread, but there's a handful of people in there that are just so stupid. Like, how stupid can you be? It's like, oh, I stayed home and I followed the rules, and oh, like, no, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're not saving lives by doing this garbage. Like, you're not saving lives, and even if you are, well, why are the politicians not following their own rules? Like, the reason that the Global News did this is that they wanted to single out the one guy who has the balls to actually be honest with the people about it. Like, at least Randy Hillier is honest about it. Like, this is the thing I pointed out. Like, do you honestly think that he was the only one? Like, I guarantee you, between the MPs and the MPPs in all of Canada, at least 100 of them broke the rules. At least 100. At least 100, right? I would bet upwards of 300 broke the rules. And the one person you point out is Randy Hillier. Like, come on, that is just such garbage. This is from Angela Patterson saying peace officers are now patrolling neighborhoods and checking registration on vehicles parked in front of homes during the holiday season. If the vehicle is not registered to the homeowner, they will knock on the home for registration. Alberta is truly becoming a police state. Now, again, like we don't have rights anymore as Canadians, as Albertans, as whoever you are. We don't have rights because again, if the government can so easily, willy-nilly violate people's rights, then you don't have them. Like that is the whole point of rights. That I don't know why it's so complicated to bring up to people that if rights can be so easily taken away from people, then they don't exist. If they won't hold up in court, then they don't exist. It does the paper is worthless. It doesn't matter what the charter says. This is the thing people say, when we point out how we don't have any rights anymore, they'll say, "Oh no, the charter says this or the constitution says," when it's not worth the paper it's written on if the courts are not upholding it. If the constitution meant anything, they would have struck down not allowing people to get together, right? Like for especially for Christmas, right? They would have struck down closing businesses with no science to back that up. The charter means absolutely nothing at this point. Absolutely nothing. And the last thing I wanted to bring up again, speaking of people not following their own rules here, this is from Dinesh D'Souza, if it would load here. Yeah, it's the Rhode Island governor. The Rhode Island governor tells citizens to stay home before heading to wine bar from the Daily Caller. Again, like how many examples of this do we need before people start questioning the narrative? Like how many? I, I like I say, I must have been. I bet you if I went back, I could probably go over probably 20, 30, upwards of 50 of these cases, and yet the average person's still dumb enough to go along with. Like I say, I think it's one of the most interesting aspects of human psychology that you have this certain percentage of the population that just begs to be treated like a peasant, to begs for their rights to be taken away. Like the levels of just ignorance and insanity of these people really just it boggles my mind how people can be that stupid. It really does. Um, so anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I appreciate whatever support I can get, but at the very least, just check out those links. Stay tuned for more. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.